If it's too complicated. Oh, here you go. You're live now.
We are live, fans, on thehannibaltv.com. Happy New Year. This is our weekly edition of the Hannibal TV this week. Just as the name says, it's the podcast, the interactive podcast, where the fans weigh in along with us on the news in the pro wrestling world. My name is Jack Kilby, coming to you again on location in beautiful South Carolina. But I am joined, as always, by the man who is the godfather, the founder of the Hannibal TV, and that would, of course, be Hannibal. Hannibal, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's a little cold here in Wichita. How's everything in South Carolina? Can we see your view from your window?
Yeah, but just so I don't mess up the feed before then, at the end, the fans, if they can bear with me, I'll show the wonderful beach that I'm on right here on Ocean Boulevard in Myrtle Beach, and it is very chilly today by Myrtle Beach standards. It's about give or take 10 degrees Celsius, but again, the sun is shining, and that's great being up in the Great White North where we never see the sun this time of year.
Yeah, the sun's shining here too, and they shut everything down for a couple days after only about 4 or 6 inches of snow, but it's melting now and things are getting back to normal. Even Florida is cold. The King of Connecticut was telling me the other day. So we're January, the coldest month of the year. But the wrestling news is hot today, so let's get into it.
Yeah, lots to talk about. And as the fans know, you did a watch along for the debut of Monday Night Raw on Netflix, which has been, attributed by some commentators, excuse me, and I'm thinking Eric Bischoff, to the shift in the business when it went from a syndicated regional television product to a national television project or product. Just a major turn in the industry. Wanted to know right off the hop about your thoughts of, aside from the matches and the other content, what did you think of the production and the overall branding presentation? They certainly did some major branding on that telecast, which I think was probably the intent of the initial broadcast.
To me, honestly, I'm already sick of hearing about the Netflix stuff. They did a great job promoting it and getting people to watch the first episode. And the production was good, but the show itself, the best part were the highlights. And for the people, a lot of people I noticed are just seeing the highlights and saying it was awesome based on the highlights. But if you actually had to sit there and watch the 3 hour and 10 minute plus show, people that watched it live with me, and people can look up the watch line on the Hannibal TV. It was very slow pace and hard to watch, but I admit that there was some interesting parts about it. And there's no doubt Triple H is good at some things, but if this is the genius booker of Triple H at work, I mean, there was some good moments to it, but I do not want to sit there for 3 hours and 10 minutes again. It was not fun for me, although there was some good points in it. However, I did like Rock's NXT promo last night better than his Raw promo, because it seemed, as you're mentioning, the branding, it was all about promoting the Netflix brand on Raw on Monday night. More than half of Rock's promo was actually just putting over Netflix. And I'm sure you'll ask about other guys' promos, but it seemed like overall let's talk about Netflix. Let's get over Netflix.
Yeah, which I guess I can understand, but it sure didn't make for a lot of riveting moments. Although there were some highlights, but I know we were talking about this on the live stream. What is the deal? At least in America, I understand it was a different situation in Canada, but the American feed that I was watching down here, the ads. Come on. I know others have defended it. Again, Bischoff was saying, why would you let, millions of dollars in revenue per week go by, blah, blah, blah. But I just found it actually, as I told you off air, I fell asleep. And a lot of it, well, due to the fact I have an old fart, but also the ads. Come on.
You didn't make it to the end. And again, we documented this through the live stream because you were commenting up to a certain point and you clearly tapped out. I'll thank the fans again. It's you fans that were watching it with me that kept me through it, because when I was bored, I was just talking to you guys. But what annoyed me, and it actually really pissed me off, you could tell by my review of it, I was pissed after sitting through it so long, was the ads. Because I watch Netflix. I have Netflix, and I've never seen any ads on Netflix. That's part of why I like Netflix. So to have to watch this and not only get regular ads for Lemonade, TurboTax, and other like normal everyday stuff, movies, we also had to get ads with wrestlers in them where wrestlers were promoting products that was just basically advertising with wrestlers, and then the advertisements from WWE. So again, the only thing I learned from this is I'll stick to watching YouTube highlights. I'm not going to torture myself watching advertisements. As I said, I don't listen to normal radio either. I listen to Sirius XM. I got YouTube Premium, so I don't have to watch the ads. And to me, it's well worth it because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of value. You only have so much time in your life. You don't want to be watching ads. And again, there was only to cut down to the only interesting stuff on the show. I mean, it would have been a lot shorter. There was a lot of filler time in this, a lot of crowd shots. And one other thing I'll address for everyone talking about Macaulay Culkin is such a wrestling fan. There's footage of him going to a match back in 1990, I think it was, WrestleMania 7, 1991. And then he's at Netflix, which he's obviously paid to appear. He might be a wrestling fan, but don't fool yourself, people. He's paid to appear. And you can even see in the last match, a lot of celebrities got bored. There's rows of empty seats on the floor in the last match where a lot of the people that were paid to appear or did it because they were executive or something, they just left. So it didn't hold even the people sitting towards the front, the attention. But if you just watch the highlights, yeah, oh, what an amazing show. But to actually have to sit there through all the boring parts for 3 hours and 10 minutes plus, I was so happy when it was over. I felt like I accomplished something. I didn't feel like, oh my God, that was amazing. It's like, I can't believe at some points I wanted to quit, but I made it through.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can't see myself sitting and watching that show from its entirety for 3 hours with all that filler. And I agree with you. YouTube Premium is a much better deal than the Netflix subscription, considering they've raised their rates. And I guess people are saying, well, that's being petty. But in another branding note, I have to ask you, what did you think of the new ring canvas with the advertising on it? I know McMahon, who we have a story on here later to get to, was very much against branding, advertising on the ring. What are your thoughts on that? And the color, the black color?
I didn't have any issues with that. I obviously it's an extremely corporate company, and again, with them bragging that this was the biggest gate for Raw in history, it's because they're charging so much that your average person can't go. It's very about making money, and you can't hold that against them. I will hold against them putting ads on Netflix, making me sit through ads when the whole reason I buy Netflix is to not watch the ads. As far as ads on the ring, fine. Boxing does it. UFC does it. I don't really care about that. It was the actual commercial breaks when I'm supposed to be paying for non-commercial programming.
Yeah, I personally didn't mind that as well because of the examples that you mentioned. Plus, the black ring, I thought kind of made certain aspects of the presentation stand out. But let's shift a minute to talk about one of the major stories albeit unintentional.
Well, just
That
bring this up. Ivan just has a good point. Imagine they had The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Roman Reigns, John Cena. A lot of these people aren't going to be appearing every single week. Imagine having to sit through that with the commercials. That's an excellent point. No, you'd have to be a fan to do it. A lot of people were just tuning into this show because it was the first one to check it out. I think it was too long to really keep many of them. Some people might check it out again that haven't seen it or that's an actual super fan. But I think your average person like me, maybe I'm even a wrestling fan that just hasn't watched Raw for a while, and to sit through that, it's just like you did not capture me with that show.
Yeah, I that is an excellent point. We'll have to see how it plays out with an aspect that will end the raw discussion on. But before I get to that, what about the story that a lot of folks are talking about, and that's one of the legends coming out, Hulk Hogan himself, getting heavily booed audibly, and actually the subtitles of the broadcast at a couple points said crowd booing. But much has been made about that. And ironically, on the heels of an announcement that he signed a deal with WWE, or sorry, the corporation, to promote his real American beer. What do you think about that? Is it a fart in the wind, or do you think it's more significant moving forward for Hogan's relationship with the new TKO corporation?
From what I understand, they didn't necessarily like that reaction because they want to keep him presented as a babyface. So they're not going to use him in front of a live crowd for the immediate future. They're going to use him in documentaries and stuff, and just commercials and things where there's not the risk of getting that reaction because you can control that narrative. And maybe down the road, who knows, use him as a heel again. He could be a great heel manager. I'd like to see he didn't. Let's face the facts here. This is another example of how bad the show was. What are we talking about mainly? Hogan got booed. Hogan got booed for like 30 seconds of a 3 hour and 10-minute show. That's what seriously people are talking about more than anything from the show. How good was the show? And let's break down that promo from Hogan. All he did was put over Netflix and plug the beer. He did nothing but that. And Jimmy Hart's just standing there like a robot. It deserved to be booed for that reason. It deserved to be booed for that reason. But why I wouldn't boo it is because it was better compared to a lot of this stuff we had sat through. Like John Cena's promo, for instance, was like 10 minutes plus putting over Netflix.
Yeah.
So compared to that and The Rock, I mean, I even like The Rock. He's one of my favorite wrestlers and one of, you could call him a hero of mine. But it was just, I don't want to hear The Rock just suck up the Netflix. I understand why he does it, but at least the Hogan thing was short. But give us a reason to cheer. If he's just going to go out there in a democratic state where he's clearly pro Trump and there's a lot of African Americans there and he's got a history of use of the N word. And I mean, let's face it, he's one of Brian Knobb's best friends. Brian Knobbs openly uses the N word, even did it on tape with me. So there's no question Hogan probably is okay with that, considering those two were best buddies forever. I don't know if he's ditched Knobbs as a friend by now or not. But like, I just think I don't personally give a damn if he was booed or not. I just think it's funny that that's what people are talking about more so than the CM Punk match, more so than the Roman Reigns match, anything else that happened on the show. Hogan got booed. That shows you how irrelevant even the top stars are in mainstream public. I'm not saying they're not known by wrestling fans, but people care that Hogan's getting booed more than anything else on the show.
Yeah, I think aside from the controversies personally, and in terms, and there's a shout out to one king of the streets, Angel Medina, watching our show today, my partner on the Shooting from the Hip podcast, which we'll be doing this month, another edition. But I think you make a salient point, man, that was brutal. That was boring. It was filler. And you know what? It was pretty predictable that he would be booed in California, given the recent activities with the RNC, etc. But yeah,
They should just call it segments now instead of wrestling. This segment's going to happen tonight. These people are just going to come out and talk, and nothing's going to happen.
Right.
Like, have them do something if you want us to cheer.
Yeah. And then there was the one that personally put me to sleep, and of course I respect his work, but on the live stream I compared his promo, if you want to call it that, to it reminded me of being in the crowd at the Stratford Festival, and Cena coming out and talking about Netflix, and then his retirement tour, so to speak. So what did you think of that? If that's a harbinger of what Raw is going to be, it's one of the reasons why myself and many fans tuned out in the first place. Those 10, maybe it was 12 minutes the promo, but it seemed much longer to that.
Yeah, and Craig is bringing up that there was over half an hour before the wrestling started, and there was a point where everyone was in the ring, just standing in the ring for what seemed like 10 minutes, and these guys are supposed to be enemies. So I'm just watching this. Why am I watching people stand in the ring? At least not every single match. A lot of matches, they have their big, long entrances. Then we have to listen to another introduction. Then they're doing a stare down in the ring after the introductions. Why is the match not started? Like, what the hell? In UFC, it's like, let's do the stare, like, let's just get the match started. You don't just stand around staring at each other forever. But for the John Cena promo, it would have been better if it was shorter. They could have fit more in there to have more. I heard they cancel. I mean, I'm not even a Penta fan. I just want to see him do something in WWE after AEW wasted him and then had him sit at home for months without even using him on TV, which is just, I'm sick of them doing that with people. It infuriates me. It's an insult to the wrestlers. It's a dumb business move. And it just shows you that company is absolutely foolish. So you could have fit Penta in there, for instance, for a debut. If John Cena didn't have to talk for like 8 minutes about Netflix, and then he finally got into his retirement match and mentioned he wanted to win the Royal Rumble, I was already tuning out by then because I was so bored of hearing, oh, Netflix is great. Netflix, again, one of the things they're saying is now we're in more countries. It's like, is YouTube not in every country? Just about. Probably not North Korea. But like, it's like Netflix is their savior, so now suddenly they can get viewed by the world. It's just like propaganda. So I don't know. I thought that I don't have any issues with Cena necessarily, other than his deep love for China, where they boil and skin dogs alive, which is a dog lover. I really have issues with that. Not to mention there's other parts of China I don't like. But yeah, I thought that should have been a lot shorter.
Definitely, and not exactly scintillating content to listen to people talk, especially when there was that 30-minute plus initial period. What do you think of the speculation that he's going to finally win another world heavyweight title, whichever one I guess is up for speculation, and on paper break Flair's official 16-time record? Do you think they're going to pull the trigger on that one, or what are your thoughts?
I think they should, honestly, at this point. But I hope if it is one that it's Cody Rhodes' title, because the other title is meaningless. Cody Rhodes already beat Gunther clean at Crown Jewel. Why should anyone care about that second world title? First of all, Gunther, although I have no problem with his wrestling, but he's not even in the category of one of their top 5. Like, even if you throw Brock Lesnar in there, he'd be even further down. If you throw Goldberg in there, he'd be even further down. So it's like you can't even consider, even when Damian Priest had it, like, this guy's not really one of, if there was an A show, a B show, and a C show, they might be headlining the C show in the 80s. But there's nothing necessarily wrong with them. They're just not there yet. But the confusing thing is, what the hell? Now The Rock is even holding a title, and he looks great with the title, and the title looks great, but it's even more confusing. It's like The Rock is clearly by far the biggest star in the company, and he's walking around with the title now, which I don't know what the hell title it is. They didn't do a good enough job explaining that to me anyways. I didn't understand it. And then Cody's the champion, and then Gunther, who wasn't even good enough. Here's the fact for anyone that wants to argue with me if he's a star or not. They didn't even think enough of him to give him a match on the show. So clearly they don't think he's that big of a draw because they put everyone on that show in the 4 matches that they thought would get eyes on the product.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And Bischoff talked about that as well. And he said, well, you can't give the fans everything that they want. And the idea that there would be a world title matchup featuring, that belt that Cody has, that's kind of an outmoded sort of concept. But I disagree. I think you're bang on with that. They must not see him in the same category. But of the matches, the major ones that come to mind, Roman, Solo, the women's title change, and the Punk Rollins encounter. What did you? Obviously, I think we're on the same page. You like the Reigns match the best, notwithstanding the interference by everyone and their dog, including Kevin Steen. But what was your thoughts on the actual in-ring product?
The interference in that first match took me out of it. The match I liked. I didn't like the McIntyre one. It started off decent, but too much. I don't like leg slapping and stuff, and I just couldn't. By that point, I think it was the 3rd match, and the show was already going on for like 2.5 hours. I was just thinking, when is this going to be over? The CM Punk match was the best for action to me, as far as like bell to bell action. I did like the girls match the best because they're both very attractive. And from an entertainment value, there was the most going on in that match to keep me entertained. Three of the four matches used the table, which is just overkill on the table. I didn't quite get that. But definitely, in my opinion, maybe it's because they're just both good looking and it happened at the time of the show before I got really bored was the girls match. I thought the thing with the Undertaker, it was easier to take in the YouTube clip. It looks a lot cooler in the YouTube clip than after you're watching the whole show by this point and you're starting to get tired. But one thing I didn't get, they have Undertaker come out at the end of this Rhea Ripley match in his motorcycle and like just drive by Rhea on his way to the ring and the way back. Like, why not get her to jump on the back and drive her out or drive her around? Like, what's the point? And then she's just standing there. If you guys like that, fine. But the only thing going through my head is, what is the point of this if she's not going to get on the bike? Oh, yay, I get to watch The Undertaker drive the bike around. But then he's just going to keep driving, and then I'm going to just turn around and walk through the tunnel. To me, I'm a big Undertaker fan, but to me, I didn't get why they didn't have her just jump on the back of the bike,
or at least do something. And that's been a discussion online, which is, why is it that when Steve Austin, Stone Cold, lives either in California itself or close in Nevada or wherever, it's not a big commute either way. Why didn't he appear? And a lot of people have pointed to the fact that, well, look at what they, did with the Undertaker. He was basically there, not being used, and it's not, going to advance, any sort of value in his particular character or presentation. Did you think that Stone Cold made the right move by sitting out on this one, given the way some of the other legends were presented?
I honestly think that because he has a history of female abuse, they're very careful with how they use Austin because they can get bad public. Look at what happened with Hogan, and now apparently they're not going to use Hogan in front of a live crowd. They don't want to promote that Austin's coming on too much. That's why I truly believe his match was spur of the moment, and they didn't actually advertise him having a match against Kevin Steen a few years ago. Because if they had got a lot of heat and the whole match was canceled, they like if you actually look at it, since his abuse issue, he's had like 3 matches. He's literally had 3 matches, and he can result in bad publicity, or it can be overlooked. But they have to be careful and weigh the risk to reward with Austin. That's just my theory on it. Because now, I mean, look at how much heat Hogan got, and I mean, he's allegedly said the N word. Deborah's on record saying that Austin beat the crap out of her many times, and he actually pled no contest to it in court. So, I mean, there's a lot of baggage there worse than saying the N word. So I think truly that they just weigh the risk to reward with Austin. That would be my theory on why he didn't appear and they didn't need him. He wouldn't have added anything to the show at this point. He would have got a pop, but considering like everyone else they had, I don't. Other than like a quick pop, I don't know. That they're probably going to save that for another time.
Before we leave Cena, his last alleged Canadian appearances upcoming at pay-per-view. I believe it's next month in Vancouver. Where would you rank him?
Toronto in March.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. I'm off by the month in the event. Where would you rank him in terms of the all-time greats that have graced that particular company? Is he in the top 5 in your opinion?
Well, he definitely was the most popular wrestler in the company for a period of time and one of the biggest stars to ever come out of the company. And he had where Roman Reigns has not, and I like Roman Reigns. I would say he's one of my favorites as far as he's pretty much one of the only new ones I actually like. Roman has not caught up to mainstream as Cena. Pretty much everybody knows who John Cena is. Not people outside of wrestling, most of them actually still don't know who Roman Reigns is. And someone even brought up recently, like even the Undertaker, he's really known in wrestling, but he hasn't done like that many movies and stuff. So I think as far as pop culture, John Cena may have even transcended pop culture more than the Undertaker. I'm not saying he's he's on the Mount Rushmore more than the Undertaker would be, though, as far as wrestling goes. But I think John Cena. I mean, you can't take away. He's very much a company guy. He put over that Austin Theory guy who was sitting in the crowd for this. They were like, he really didn't take the ball and run with it when they put Cena over Austin Theory. He's kind of dropped off the radar. But yeah, Cena will go in there and lose. Obviously, he's going to be a regular now, so they're probably going to give him a run for his last year. I was at some shows as a wrestler being used as an extra, and in Puerto Rico, he came a couple times where WWC co-promoted it. We got free tickets. The arenas were pretty full during his peak, from what I saw. So yeah, I respect him, but I wouldn't say he like was in the Hulk Hogan or Steve Austin category. Although he has had more longevity on top than Steve Austin, because Steve Austin's period on top as a regular was very short. He's only made very sporadic appearances since. So I got no issues really with Cena other than like again he can be very bland at times, such as that promo. But I like him. I like him overall.
Well, and you have to put over the fact that he's done more Make-A-Wish exercises than any WWE superstar. So hats off to him for that. But speaking of Austin Theory, he was allegedly one of Vince's last major favorites, so to speak, and that again, speculative wise online is one of the reasons why his stock has fallen so much. But wanted to bring up a story that appeared about Stephanie McMahon apparently confirming a long-standing rumor or bit of innuendo. She appeared on something, and excuse me if this doesn't ring a bell, a major podcast with A-Rod and Big Cat, where she spoke at length about growing up with Vince McMahon, and she confirmed that he doesn't like sneezing, as Pritchard and some other people have
I
said.
thought you were going to say she confirmed the long-standing thing with Savage for a second there.
I knew you were going to go there, but no, that would be quite blockbuster news. But she said, and I quote, he doesn't hate me for it, but he grimaces. He doesn't like anything that that he can't control. So the fact that he can't control the sneeze, it makes him very upset. And Pritchard on his podcast said, basically he'll ignore you if you sneeze for a number of minutes. Really, really strange sort of personality Mr. McMahon is and was.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their things that I don't really care one way or another. Uh, if he likes it when people sneeze or not, to be honest. If that's news, that's got to be a pretty slow news week.
Well, the reason it's people are talking about Vince again and stretching for stories such as that one is the fact that some found it distasteful that given his central role in creating the modern wrestling business, that there was no mention of Vince in the Netflix debut broadcast. I'm personally not surprised given the environment that you spoke of. Were you, or did you think that detracted in any way from the presentation?
I never expected it because we've always heard there's been rumors that Triple H could have been one of the ones secretly against Vince McMahon anyways, and that at one point Shane and Vince were kind of a faction backstage, and Triple H and Stephanie were a faction backstage. Who knows? I wasn't back there, but I never would have expected anything. I know they're back to the point where some executives have admitted to having meetings with Vince, a breakfast meeting in particular, not too long ago. It seems like the Grant thing might not be anything coming out of that. More likely than not, I would say. And I've even heard Meltzer say that he could even see, depending on how that ends, them using him again in some fashion. One thing that annoys the hell out of me, though, is when Meltzer said, and I agree with him on some things, other things I really don't, that Vince could never get into the wrestling business again. He has a better chance in wrestling than anything else. And I don't think that there's that much of a lack of talent. There's definitely needs to be a different type of company out there because WWE is very corporate, very produced. There was nothing gritty about. I mean, The Rock tried to bring grittiness to Netflix last night or on NXT last night by swearing and stuff. But the truth is, no one else could get away with that but him, who's one of the top on the board of directors. And I think that was almost like a display of power. Like, hey, Triple H, I'm just going to swear. What are you going to do about it? I'll just do whatever I want. I don't care what kind of example it sets. I'm The Rock. And that was, I mean, honestly, I don't necessarily agree with swearing in front of, I don't even know how many kids watch wrestling these days.
Can't be met.
Obviously, some. Yeah. I'm not necessarily pro for swearing in promos, but for him to do it just kind of shows it's a good way of showing, hey, I don't care about your conventional rules. So that to me showed a little bit of grittiness. But like AEW is so politically correct. WWE is so corporate. New Japan is practically irrelevant now. It's so boring. There's no real other companies that really are buzzing at all now. We're here. TNA recently released a bunch of people, and a lot of people want to get out of that company. So it's just like I would like to see Vince open up some type of competition where as a billionaire he could fund something and it would be different. Would he do that, or would it be a third company of the same crap? I really don't know, but I don't. After watching Netflix, although there were some parts I liked about it, and I liked The Rock, for instance, I don't really want to watch that show anymore, other than clips. AEW, I absolutely hate these days. It's an insult to pro wrestling, and they have some of their guys, as you showed me, that are doing like Invisible Man indie matches on their spare time, which is just disgusting and an insult to wrestling. But yeah, I don't know. I hope Vince gets back into it in some way if he gets fully exonerated of these charges, which it appears more likely than not, this whole Grant case is probably going to go away.
What did you think of the speculation about Shane McMahon being photographed with Tony Khan, and the renewed chatter that perhaps represents Shane being an emissary for Vince and somehow either purchasing or becoming involved with AEW? I don't think with the super ultra PC track record of that company that they would touch Vince.
Well, if they continue to get less and less popular by the week, the way it's going, they might get desperate to. And even like we've heard Tony Khan, I guess at one point he said WWE was the Harvey Weinstein of pro wrestling. Then, like a week or two later, he said he was open to working with them. So Khan has gone back and forth. So they really don't have any positive buzz right now in that company. But I just don't see Khan at this point in time being the son of a multi-billionaire who has similar money to Vince selling that company. I really don't see him doing that. And I don't see Vince McMahon working with Tony Khan, to be honest with you. I could see Shane, if he's going to get some ridiculous payday to make appearances, do something, but it would ignite some interest in AEW. I think Tony Khan should hire Shane McMahon, and I think he should fire at least 60 of his dead weight on the roster. I guess, by the way, Becky Lynch, someone he should have actually signed, I guess has just re-signed with WWE. That came out today too. So it's like he's got all this dead weight that he's paying money to. And like Becky Lynch, I'm not even really a fan of hers, but I would have recruited Becky Lynch. But he'll get these people no one's ever heard of and just have them not even wrestle and pay them. It seems like such a waste of money.
Yeah, I think Shane would be an asset to AEW for sure, but it's been a while since that photo came out, so who knows? But speaking of AEW, and it's a pretty slow news week for them as well. The major story was that former WWE talents Beth Phoenix and Samantha Irwin were spotted backstage at Dynamite in Asheville, North Carolina, and most recently, Bray Wyatt's wife, JoJo Offerman, was introduced as a ring announcer. So, aside from that, no major rumors of talent acquisition, like you're saying.
Well, that Asheville show is Edge's town, and Edge is married to Beth Phoenix. Could they sign her? I would sign her just because she's somewhat of a name, but would she be a numbers mover? No. No. And Edge certainly hasn't been a number. It's funny because I think, including comps, they only had about 3,000 people at that show. And there's a picture of Edge facing off with Jericho and literally a completely empty side of the building. So I just remember when they first started, oh, we're not gonna be full of people WWE doesn't want anymore. We're gonna be gritty and young and old school. And like now, I mean, I like Edge. He seems like a really nice person, but or should I call him Cope now? I guess his new name is Cope. I mean, it's just like, and Jericho when he first went there, it was cool because like was still kind of relevant then in the WWE. But now it's like, unless Jericho, the only way that he would get buzz again now is if he went back to WWE for a while. There'd be some buzz, but I think they're paying him too well in AEW. But overall, it's just blah seeing him in AEW now. And, and Edge, what they're putting him with FTR now.
Yeah.
That doesn't interest me at all because they're all from again. These guys are all from Asheville, and they get 3,000 people in like a 12 or 13,000 seat building with an entire side empty. That looks really bad on you guys as the local stars.
Yeah, 100%. And we've talked about this before ad nauseum about, it doesn't seem to matter what free agents they sign and bring in. And of course, the whole line when they were starting that they were going to be, not bringing in WWE former talents, and then a sports based presentation and a ranking system and everything it appears to be all out the window. But yeah, nothing much of interest coming out of AEW.
Sports base with the pizza guy who's wrestling while he's flipping the pizza, and these Costco guys, which are, I guess, the Costco guys are now included in the new opening. So I think Vince Russo said it best. Like they're in their 15 minutes of fame right now when you're putting them in the opening. And like these are neat. I'll agree with Vince Russo. Some people don't like him, but I will agree with him on this. Like their niche, I had never even heard of the. It's not like, at least David Arquette. Everyone at the time they used him had heard of Scream, and Ready to Rumble was a movie everyone was gonna watch that was wrestling fans, so he was known. This Costco thing, how many wrestling fans honestly watch a bunch of guys that sample Costco food? Honestly, it's not like this has a big. It's not like everyone was watching these guys. And honestly, they're not good in the ring. And the one guy's old, and it's been his dream all his life. He hadn't wrestled in 20 years. If he cared about wrestling that much, he wouldn't have gone so long without wrestling. As Vince Russo said, good for them. They're cashing out while they're still on their 15 minutes. But this is a mistake, putting so much emphasis on these basically geeks. No one's watching this thinking these guys are cool that are cool themselves. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry if some of you guys think that they're cool. But
Well,
they might make entertaining Costco videos, but I don't think it's cool that they're wrestling. I don't think it's cool that the 14-year-old is taking down grown men in the wrestling ring. I just think it's stupid.
and you can't compare the Costco guys to David Arquette. I've seen that as well, and for those reasons that you mentioned, it's not a sound comparison. But as Vince has stated in many interviews, after they put the belt, and say what you want about hurting the belt and the lineage and blah blah blah, but after they put the belt on him, it was on the front page of the USA Today. It garnered a tremendous amount of mainstream publicity for WCW at the time. And these Costco guys are a niche within a niche. And quite frankly, I think they'll be, with the way that the news cycle and everything moves, or pop culture, whatever you want to call it, moves these days, they'll be forgotten next month.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I was deadly against the David Arquette thing, but he wasn't under contract, and he donated his money to Pillman, and he was going out with Courtney Cox. Like, these guys are not dating any celebrities. They're not. Entertainment Tonight is not following these guys around. And honestly, like they could have sent a much better person on the Tonight Show to plug their pay per view. They just had a Japan pay per view AEW that nobody cared about. Literally, nobody is talking about. The company is just becoming irrelevant.
Most definitely. Wanted to discuss the again another couple of issues making the news regarding Ric Flair. He at one point indicated that he had one more match left in him, and then after a while said no, he won't be returning to the ring ever. thankful for great health, etc., that would allow me to, though, whatever that means. I don't know if you saw his, well, you did see his last match. He looked anything but healthy there. And then for some reason he threw in that Bronson Reed couldn't tsunami me on his best day. And then Reed responded, Papa H better come get his boy. Do you think really, Hannibal, that Flair is done in the ring, or is he going to try and I don't know, get one in his 80s or even before then? Who knows with him, right?
I was just looking up something, and I am going to get to that in 1 second. I'll answer your Flair thing. But here, you guys call me jealous, and I am jealous of the money these guys are making. But these guys, these Costco guys, have 219,000 subscribers. I have 412. So these guys are not even more popular than my channel on YouTube. Yet somehow AEW is blessing these guys with big contracts. Honestly, like I'll be honest, I would be more of an upside, and I would use whatever money they would give me to wrestle to to do better things than whatever these guys are doing in wrestling. It would be way better for the business. But yeah, I am jealous that I have pretty much double the YouTube subscribers of these guys, and Tony Khan is practically coming talking about having these guys on the roster like they're the second coming of David Arquette. But I haven't been following the Ric Flair, Bronson Reed stuff. I honestly don't care. I honestly don't care. I feel bad for Bronson Reed with his foot injury, but he's getting paid. He's under contract. It happened in the ring. He'll be taken care of. Ric Flair, I don't think he should wrestle again. That last match was horrible. I do think that they should use him in some capacity. I don't think they're going to because he continuously gets himself in trouble, and too many people have camera phones these days, and he hasn't stopped drinking by the pictures I've seen. So it's a risk, I guess, if he's in a big company that he'll do something that will get them bad publicity. And it's very corporate. But maybe if a company that was more edgy, like Vince McMahon's, was created, they would use a guy like Flair as a manager. But I would not want to see Flair in the ring. I really would not want to see Flair in the ring.
No, absolutely not. But it's it's a real head scratcher when we attended the AEW taping for Collision, and actually in Toronto as well this past year, the fans were wooing. He was like the most over talent there, and although he was not advertised or used, he was under contract. So I have yet to understand why they signed him in the first place and never used him except for a couple of appearances with Sting and that god awful energy drink.
A couple, yeah, I think the energy drink seems to have disappeared. But here's the thing that's mind-boggling, and I do hate these Costco guys because they're just a good example of undeserving people getting big money in wrestling and adding nothing to wrestling. In the long term, they will hurt more than they help. I promise you guys that. But like they waste Flair. Imagine, keep in mind, they just had a press conference in Dallas at this stadium that they brought the Costco guys to. Could you imagine if Ric Flair was at the press conference giving a speech? Like just between the two of them, even if Flair's just going to be a manager, as you said before the show, we're sitting in the crowd. We had the comp tickets. Everybody's wooing because he's part of AEW and they had the energy drink thing flashing. People were thinking, okay, maybe he's going to show up. It's like, no, they weren't. They weren't doing that for any other wrestler that was going to come out. Which, by the way, there was like 8 or 9 wrestlers that were advertised for that show. For anyone that didn't know, that were not on the actual show,
Including
but
Canada, both cards.
who?
Jericho.
Yeah, Jericho. Yeah, Jericho missed a lot of the Canadian ones, but he did make some. Moxley missed all of them. FTR, who we were just talking about, were advertised for that, and we're not there, along with a host of others. But yeah, my point is, between like, even though Flair's controversial, I would give him like between the Costco guys and Flair, I would 100% hire Flair, have him manage somebody, get that guy over. Because Flair is still over and he's known he's known beyond wrestling. Everybody knows Ric Flair. I think there was like about a year and a half ago, they did a survey of people to name 5 wrestlers they know, and The Rock, Hogan, Macho Man, and Ric Flair were like the most answered people. So yeah, I don't know. I just find it bizarre that they didn't do as much with Flair. But I'm talking about signing him as a manager, not as a wrestler. I don't want to see him wrestle again, but he would be a great manager, and I would watch his segments on YouTube because I'm a fan. I'm a fan of his.
Yeah, I think it's with the Costco guys. I keep hearing that the fat kid is over. Not the guy who used to wrestle and his son, but the other guy. Do you know him?
The Rizzler.
That's his name.
I only know the name because it's so stupid. But again, it's not over to. If it's over to kids, fine. If it's over to kids, fine. But I don't. To me, it's not. It's just like dweebish, geeky stuff, and it's just like, why are you giving these guys such a spotlight, and why are you putting them all under contract? I just don't get it. This is a flash in the pan thing that if I was in high school, I would give the Rizzler a pink belly.
100%. But before we leave AEW, though, I would say
And a wedgie.
wedgies are really
Remember those days?
Oh yeah, in the locker room. Got suspended for that once, giving one. I think AEW really missed their mark when you had all that buzz going for the Cody Rhodes Open Challenge, and he was I think he was afraid to face you, and think of what that could have done for their business, and probably much less negative feedback than those Costco guys.
Well, that we had Terry Funk, Billy Graham, Jacques Rougeau, Conan, Kevin Sullivan, Bushwhacker Luke even all vouched for me. Who else of that Cody Rhodes Open Challenge had that many? Of course, that's come and gone years ago. I don't even think about that. But by the way, speaking of atomic wedgies, let's watch the one I gave in a match once right here. I think it's the only atomic wedgie ever given in a match, and there's a story behind this. These guys had stolen something backstage.
Oh my.
And this was literally an atomic wedgie over the head where the drawstring actually started to choke the guy. And then he got some chops, which I still say I have one, probably the hardest chop in the business still. But anyways, what were we talking about before the wedge? I just miss the days. Like there would be a whole court case now if someone got a wedgie in school. Times have changed so much.
Yeah, that I think that's the first time I've ever seen a shoot atomic wedgie like that. That should be enshrined in the history book somewhere. But our last.
The funny thing is, though, if you guys can imagine it, these guys stole trophies from backstage. This place had some like trophies. It was at a bar for their billiard room and stuff, and they had stole them and put them in their car. The owner told me about it. That was the purpose of the wedgie. This was not like randomly, quote unquote, roughing somebody up. This guy is lucky all he got was a wedgie, but the actual drawstring of the underwear actually started like choking the guy when it got like around his neck, which is actually rare. Could you imagine dying from an atomic wedgie?
It would be a tragedy for sure, but hopefully they returned the trophies. I'm assuming they did after that.
I believe they did get them back. I believe the owners made them give them back. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing like promoting an event as a promoter and having that chicanery go on. But our last story of this week is from the National Post, and it just came out today, and this is an interesting one because of a connection to Great North Wrestling that you will, of course, reiterate, Hannibal. But the entire world, it seems, is talking about the quote unquote resignation of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Canadian Prime Minister, and Patrick Brazeau, the senator who he faced in a boxing match back in 2012, said on X, Trudeau looked like the way I did when he beat me. And he said that he would be willing once again to step in the ring for charity and take him on in a boxing match. And apparently Trudeau is a significant amateur boxer. They also reported the Post that he had a boxing, I guess it would be a warm up with an Olympic boxer in Nova Scotia in 2024. So in a sparring session. So Brazo's throwing the gauntlet out again. I think that would be something excellent for Great North Wrestling to promote. But can you fill the fans that don't know about the history with Senator Brazo?
I will say no one knows this, of course, from the American people, but one of the things that got Trudeau elected the first time is he had a boxing match with Patrick Brazo. There's numerous parties. I think, is he a conservative? I don't know what the heck he is. That's how close I pay attention. He's not a liberal. And they had Brazo box Justin Trudeau, and Justin Trudeau won. And people were calling him like a pussy and stuff back then. So him beating Brazo in this boxing match that happened in Ottawa, my town, prior to that first election actually helped Trudeau a lot. And I actually later became friends with Patrick Brazo because we both worked at the same gentleman's club for a period of time. And we actually used Brazo in Great North Wrestling. Let's watch another Great North Wrestling clip here from the past where we use Patrick Brazo, who is still a senator in Canada. He was a special guest referee for my match. And I do think that they should box again. But it's funny because now Trudeau is, for people that don't know, he's pretty much hated by most people in Canada. The first time Brazo was more of the heel. Where this time I think for sure it would be more 50-50. And Brazo would have more motivation if this match were to happen. First of all, he is tough. Look at those chops he just took. And this is an extremely dangerous move here. This is an extremely dangerous move. This is the most dangerous move in wrestling.
On the table.
And by the way, I did that better than Terry Funk and Ric Flair because they always act like the table broke. And it did not break for them. But I'm saying he's a tough guy. He's a brave guy. I really like him personally. But here's a funny thing, and you got the Canadians watching this might not realize this, but there's a big thing going on here. It's newsworthy that Trump wants to make Canada the 51st state, and a lot of people are asking me about this and acting like it'll be easy to get Canadians to agree to it. A lot of people will hate me for saying this for Canada. I wish that would happen. I really wish that would happen. I think the benefits would outweigh the negative effects of that. But it's just funny for the Americans that think like that Trump would be able to absorb Canada as easy as he's supposedly going to absorb Greenland. I just don't see that happening. People are like, oh, pretty soon we're all going to be one country. I'm like, I just don't see that happening. I wish it would happen, but there would be a lot of blowback to that.
Yeah, that would be a complicated process for sure. I'm still not convinced that Trump is 100% serious about that. Seems to me that it's motivation for the border issues of both countries to be addressed. But I think we should reach out to Patrick Brazo. You know him, Hannibal. Do an interview with him and see if we could book some kind of either boxing or better yet, how about a cage encounter between Mr. Brazo and Mr. Trudeau? Think of that. That would sell out. That would be a main event in any arena across the country. Don't you agree?
In Canada, I think it would, but I hope it happens. I will try and get an interview with Patrick Brazo. He's a nice guy. I remember my ex-wife once. Uh, he was confused, and I was at the gym. He came to my house for an interview once, and like he came the day before or a couple days before by accident. He was confused, and I was at the gym, and she answered the door, and it was like Patrick Brazo at the door, and she's just like, and her parents are definitely liberals. So I just remember her being like, "Oh my god, what are the coincidences? I'm just gonna open my door one day and Senator Patrick Brazo is gonna be there," because she wasn't expecting him at all. So it was just funny for her that, like, how random is that? You open your door and Patrick Brazo's there, because I hadn't filled her in that I had an interview planned with him a couple days later. And at that time, there was a time that he went through some controversy. Like we've all dealt with, some of us have dealt with false accusations. He had to deal with them. He ended up getting reinstated, and he's onwards and upwards and is doing great now in the Canadian Senate. But yeah, I really like him, and thanks for everyone for your comments. And I think we're both. I'm not political, and I couldn't even sit. I tried to watch Justin Trudeau's speech, and I've listened to a lot of political speeches lately, but I couldn't even make it through 2 minutes of this 10-minute cut of the speech, which I think the real length of it may have been more around 20, but I just couldn't listen to the bullshit. And what he put us through during COVID was horrible. I left Canada during COVID, and I'm not even in Canada now. I'm going to be going back, but I'm enjoying my time away from Justin Trudeau's Canada, and I'm glad that he's not going to be in power when I'm back. So that'll be the last I say, and I wish everyone a good rest of your night.
Yes, fans, that's it for this edition, this chock full edition of the Hannibal TV this week. If you haven't already, get on the train. This is a very hot channel on YouTube. Subscribers are going up, so join that. Hit